He never had success with me.
When you guys trained together, what was that training like?
It was easy. We trained 5 years ago. A lot of things has changed. I was fighting 170 that time. Imagine I beat him on that weight. I was cutting the weight. At that time I beat him. It's not gonna be different weight this time as well. He never had success with me. We'll see.
Khamzat, now that you are the UFC champion, does that carry a little extra weight or responsibility in your preparation?
No, I don't care about my belt, who I am, so I don't need to be the champ in the gym. I have to be a normal guy working every day.
But is there no different mindset? You, for so long, ever since you joined the UFC and got those 2 finishes in 10 days, you've been the hunter on your way up, and now you finally have the belt, and this is your first title fight. Do you feel different being the hunted?
Still the hunter.
Still the hunter?
Of course, I'm not going after the belt. If I was going after the belt, I would finish my career. I have already the belt. I'm going for the money.
Khalil Roundtree says that Chimaev could screw the entire light heavyweight division by moving up. And Khalil was really just complimenting Chimaev, but it was strong. I mean, I look at Khalil and I think that's the guy. I know in the right setting, that is the guy. If fights were the way that fights should be, which is equal amongst us, Khalil would be the guy, right? If all fights were 3 rounds like every other sport in the world, where the championship game is the same amount as this semifinal round, Khalil would be the guy.
Right off the bat, we're diving into a hot take that directly impacts Dana White's biggest headache right now. Khamzat Chimaev's future at 205 pounds. Khalil Roundtree just dropped a bombshell, suggesting Chimaev could screw up the entire light heavyweight division. That's huge coming from a top contender like Khalil, showing immense respect for Boers. But our speaker immediately flips the script, asserting that Khalil Roundtree himself, under a different set of rules, specifically 3-round fights, would not only be a world champion, but a record-setting one. This isn't just about what if. It challenges the very foundation of how we evaluate fighter dominance. Is Khamzat's power truly unique, or is it amplified by the current landscape? If Khalil, a formidable force, feels Chimaev is that disruptive, it sends a clear message to Dana White. Chimaev at 205 isn't just a new face. He's a potential wrecking ball whose true impact might be misunderstood, even by his peers. Dana has to figure out if Chimaev is the next multi-divisional threat, or if the current rule set is artificially inflating his perceived dominance, as our speaker suggests. Either way, it's a monumental problem for matchmakers.
Pretty dominantly beating up Alex Pereira, and very dominantly beating up Prohaska. I mean, Khalil would not only be the world champion, he would be the world, you could go back about 4 years and Khalil would be the world champion for 4 years. Khalil would be setting records. So when Khalil comes out and he's got Chimaev's nuts all over his chin, it's when I'm watching it, it's like, wow, he must have really got his ass kicked. I mean, that must have really been a beating to have Khalil come out and speaking that way. But is it true? The champion of every weight class in the UFC right now.
The speaker doubles down on his praise for Khalil Roundtree, boldly claiming Khalil would have dominantly beaten current champions like Alex Pereira and Jiri Prochaska. This is a massive statement underscoring his belief that Khalil's skill set is being underestimated by the current fight format. But then, he takes a cynical, almost humorous jab at Khalil's compliments for Chimaev, suggesting such high praise only comes after a beating. This perspective introduces a critical lens for Dana White to consider. Is the hype around Chimaev's move to 205 genuine, or is it partly a psychological reaction from his peers? Dana White is in the business of promoting the biggest fights, but if the perception of a fighter like Chimaev is inflated by factors beyond pure skill, it complicates the narrative. Khalil's respect is undeniable, but our speaker prompts us to question the source of that respect. Is it true dominance or something else entirely?
If they moved up, would still be champion. The champion in every weight class of the UFC right now, if they moved down, would no longer be champion. Think about that. And that's true in most sports. It's true in the majority of weight classes in boxing, not all of that. It's true in the majority of weight classes in boxing. It's true in all of the weight classes of wrestling, currently, right now. Freestyle and Greco-Roman. Every champion could move up and still be champion.
Now, this is where the speaker drops a truly intriguing theory that directly impacts the Khamzat Chimaev 205 conversation. He posits that the champion of every weight class, if they moved up, would still be champion, but if they moved down, they'd no longer hold the belt. This isn't just a UFC observation. He extends it to boxing and wrestling, calling it a universal truth in combat sports. This challenges the conventional wisdom that bigger is better when discussing a fighter moving up. For Dana White, this implies that Chimaev's jump to light heavyweight might not be as strategically advantageous as many believe. If the real threat to a champion like Alex Pereira isn't from someone coming up like Chimaev, but from someone coming down from heavyweight, it fundamentally shifts how Dana should perceive Chimaev's challenge. It suggests Chimaev's natural 205 opponents are his true test, not necessarily his size advantage.
Every champion, if they were to move down, would no longer be champion. None of them. Interesting. It's just a perception thing. It's always been perceived that the bigger guy has the advantage. And it's just never been true historically. I love to give people the example, but Mike Tyson never, not once, outweighed an opponent. We're also told that there's a reach advantage. Mike Tyson...
The speaker continues to dissect the bigger is better fallacy, labeling it a mere perception thing that has never been true historically. He then brings in the iconic example of Mike Tyson, a heavyweight legend who surprisingly never, not once, outweighed an opponent. This historical context is vital when Dana White is weighing the implications of Khamzat Chimaev moving to 205. The popular narrative often assumes Chimaev's size and strength will simply overwhelm the smaller light heavyweights. However, if history tells us that superior skill and technique often trump brute size, then Dana White needs to ensure Chimaev isn't just relying on a perceived physical advantage that might not actually exist. This puts the onus on Chimaev to prove he has the elite skills, not just the size, to dominate the division, especially against opponents who might be more technically refined.
Never had a longer reach than an opponent. How do you like that? He never weighed more and he never had a longer reach. We're told there's a height advantage. Mike Tyson was never taller than an opponent. How do you like that? Muhammad Ali was 198 pounds when he was the heavyweight champion of the world. Rocky Marciano never broke 200 pounds when he was the heavyweight champion of the world. I'm just sharing, like, there's never been a time. There's never been a time in history where bigger was better, but it's always been perceived that way. And I only bring it to you, is Khalil right? Is...
The historical examples against bigger is better keep coming, further eroding the foundation of conventional fight analysis. Mike Tyson, despite his destructive power, never had a reach or height advantage. Then, the speaker drops Muhammad Ali and Rocky Marciano, two legendary heavyweights who never broke 200 pounds or were only just over it. This is a powerful argument against the idea that a fighter like Khamzat Chimaev's perceived size at 205 automatically guarantees him success. Dana White and his matchmakers must be careful not to fall prey to this perception. Chimaev's success at light heavyweight won't just come from being big, but from being the superior fighter, just like Ali and Marciano proved in their eras. This historical reality checks the hype train and forces Dana to deal with Chimaev's actual skill level, not just his physical stature.
Chimaev, that greater is just every guy from down a weight class, right? If you want to know the hardest opponent you could possibly find, Khamzat Chimaev, it is actually not Alex Pereira. That's a wonderful match. You'd make a bunch of money if you were the promoter, but the hardest fight would be Islam. The hardest fight for everybody is the top guy from one weight class down. The hardest fight for Islam would be Ilya. And you could just keep on playing. It never goes away. And I appreciate the respect that Khalil showed to Chimaev. I appreciate it. But Khalil would be surprised.
Here's the crux of the argument, directly challenging the narrative around Chimaev's move to 205. The speaker explicitly asks if Chimaev is that great or simply benefits from being the guy from one weight class down. This is a critical distinction for Dana White. The speaker argues that the hardest fight isn't the guy in your weight class, or even the one above, but the top guy from one weight class down, exemplified by Islam Makhachev versus Ilia Topuria. This theory implies that while Chimaev is formidable, His move to 205 doesn't automatically make him unbeatable. It suggests that Dana needs to find fighters who are not only skilled, but potentially lighter, to truly test Chimaev. The speaker acknowledges Khalil's respect for Chimaev, but hints that Khalil might be surprised by this underlying dynamic, suggesting that even Khalil may be underestimating the true challenges Chimaev faces at 205.
I'm right. I'm right that if this sport was contested the way that it should be, which is equal, they were all 3 rounds, Khalil would not only be your world champion, he would be a record-setting world champion. He would have had it he'd have that belt about 4 years. If Khalil was to go up to heavyweight right now. Now again, it's 3. Khalil's got too many muscles. No matter how he trains, he will never be able to go 5 rounds. Never. He's just not built. Just not built that way. But if it was 3-round fights.
The speaker forcefully reiterates his core belief. If the sport were contested in 3-round fights, Khalil Rountree would not only be a world champion, but a record-setting one, holding the belt for years. He even extends this to Khalil potentially dominating at heavyweight, again, if it were 3 rounds. This is a direct shot at the current UFC format, implying that the 5-round championship structure unfairly handicaps fighters with a too-many-muscles physique like Khalil's, who struggle with the cardio demands of longer fights. For Dana White, this commentary highlights a potential flaw in how fighting prowess is measured at the highest level. If Chimaev is destined for championship rounds at 205, this perspective suggests that his cardio and ability to maintain pace over 5 rounds will be his ultimate test, regardless of how dominant he looks in shorter bursts. It's a strategic consideration Dana must contend with for Chimaev's long-term success.
I believe that Khalil could go up to heavyweight and he would have those heavyweights paying him the same compliments that he's paying Chimaev. So are the compliments fair? Yeah, sure, that's Khalil's opinion. But is it because Chimaev is so good, or is it just because he's the champion from 1 weight class down? I suppose we wouldn't know. But the hardest guy to face is not the guy in your weight or the guy above you. It's the guy 1 weight class down.
The speaker concludes by circling back to Khalil Rountree, asserting that if fights were 3 rounds, even heavyweights would be paying Khalil the same high compliments he's given Chimaev. This raises the ultimate question for Dana White. Is Khamzat Chimaev's perceived dominance at 205 truly because he is so good, or simply because he's the champion from 1 weight class down, as the speaker theorizes? The final, emphatic statement reinforces the idea that the hardest guy to face is not the guy in your weight or the guy above you. It's the guy 1 weight class down. This radically shifts the narrative around Chimaev's move. Dana White isn't just dealing with a formidable opponent in Chimaev. He's dealing with a fighter whose true threat, according to this analysis, might be misunderstood, and his toughest challenges could come from unexpected places within the weight hierarchy, forcing a reevaluation of how he's matched up at light heavyweight.